The stars above Aurelia had grown dim. Once, they had burned bright enough to paint the skies in gold and fire, illuminating the capital world 1,000 suns. Now, they flickered like dying embers, remnants of an empire that had ruled the galaxy for longer than humanity had existed. Among the ruins stood the Obsidian Palace, its once polished towers corroded by millennia of silence. The wind carried a faint hum of forgotten machinery, and beneath the black spires, shadows danced like ghosts clinging to the memory of grandeur. Deep within the palace's heart, the last of the Aurelians slept, a being older than entire human civilizations. His name was Veldar IX, Emperor of 10,000 worlds, guardian of the celestial throne, and now, the last heartbeat of a fallen god race. He had ruled during the Empire's final age of decline. When the suns began to fade, his scientists warned him that the Empire's reach had exceeded its grasp. But pride, the same pride that had carried the Aurelians to the stars, had blinded them. They tried to command the cosmos itself, bending the laws of creation. And in doing so, they awakened forces beyond comprehension. The Watchers came. The wars that followed scorched entire sectors to dust. And so, in a final act of desperation, Veldar sealed himself in stasis, entombed beneath his dead palace, waiting for redemption, for resurrection, or perhaps for judgment, the arrival of the humans. 60,000 years later, the void trembled again, not with war, but with curiosity. A human exploration vessel, TSV Odyssey, emerged from the folds of subspace, its hull shimmering with Terran insignia and solar sails made of translucent alloys. Humanity, now a spacefaring species, had wandered far from their cradle, not as conquerors, but as seekers. Commander Elias Draven, head of the Odyssey's Deep Exploration Division, stood at the observation deck as Aurelia came into view. It was a world of twilight, half shattered, half beautiful. Ruined spires rose from deserts of glass, and orbital debris shimmered like constellations of wreckage. Atmospheres thin, radiation levels minimal, said Lieutenant Rana Solari, scanning her console. But I'm picking up faint power signatures, deep beneath the equatorial zone. Elias frowned. After 60 millennia, someone or something left the lights on. He gave the order to descend. The ship's thrusters flared, scattering dust storms across the ruins. As the landing ramp extended, the air shimmered with static, as though the world itself stirred, remembering old footsteps. They walked through a city petrified in time. Statues of radiant beings lined the streets, their crystalline eyes dull and cracked. Massive murals depicted the Aurelians raising suns, commanding stars, binding galaxies to their will. But all of it was dead, silent testimony to arrogance untempered by humility. The chamber of stasis. The energy readings led them deep beneath the palace, through tunnels lined with obsidian metal that resisted decay. At the core lay a vast circular chamber, its ceiling carved with constellations that no longer existed. In the center stood a stasis sarcophagus, half buried in dust, surrounded by golden pylons still humming faintly with power. Life readings, whispered Rana. It's weak, but real. Elias approached the sarcophagus, brushing away the dust. Strange Aurelian runes pulsed with a dim violet glow, ancient, beautiful, and alien. He could feel a presence within, vast and heavy, like standing at the edge of an ocean made of time. He placed his gloved hand on the control panel. Let's wake him up. The chamber trembled as ancient machinery rumbled to life. Power conduits flared. Dust cascaded from the ceiling, and the stasis field dissolved with sound like the sigh of an entire civilization. Inside, the figure stirred. Veldar IX rose slowly, his armor gleaming faintly with golden veins of energy. His eyes open, deep amethyst orbs that seemed to see beyond flesh and matter. His voice echoed to the chamber, layered with tones that resonated in both mind and air. Who dares to stir the Emperor's rest? Elias steadied himself. My name is Elias Draven, commander of the Terran vessel Odyssey. We are explorers from the world called Earth. The Emperor's gaze flickered, confusion and recognition intertwining. Earth, he murmured, tasting the word like a half-remembered song. The child race. The wanderers of the spiral arm. He stepped forward, towering over the humans, yet his movements were slow, burdened. His body bore the scars of age. His armor cracked in places where once it shone flawless. "So, it is true," Veldar whispered. "The Aurelian sons are gone. The Dominion has fallen." Elias hesitated. "We found no records of your people in living archives. Only ruins scattered across the stars." A long silence followed. The Emperor's gaze fell to the floor. "Then I am truly the last." The kneeling of the Emperor. When he looked up again, his expression had changed, no longer regal, but searching. "Tell me, human, do your people rule the stars now?" Elias shook his head. "No, we explore them. We learn, we listen, and we try not to repeat the mistakes of those who came before us." A faint, almost disbelieving smile crossed the Emperor's lips. "A species that learns. How rare." He turned toward a broken mural, a depiction of himself standing beneath twin suns, surrounded by fleets of shining ships. "We believed ourselves eternal. We conquered not for survival, but for meaning. And in doing so, we forgot why the stars burn for us at all." Then, to the shock of every human present, Veldar knelt. The sound echoed like thunder through the chamber, an immortal emperor lowering himself before mortal. "You carry what we lost," he said softly. "Hope, wonder, the courage to begin again without the need to rule." Elias took a step forward, speechless. "You don't have to bow. Your people—" "My people are gone," Veldar interrupted gently. "But perhaps in you they live on." For the first time in 60,000 years, the Emperor's eyes softened, not as a ruler, but as someone who finally understood. The ancient systems around them flickered awake, as if the planet itself recognized a moment. Holographic lights rippled across the walls, and data streams flowed into the air, revealing long-lost star maps, technologies, and the history of fallen empire. "Take what remains of Aurelia," Veldar said, "not as conquerors, but as inheritors of meaning. If your kind remembers our fall, perhaps the stars will never darken again." Elias extended his hand. "Then we'll rebuild together." The Emperor hesitated, then clasped the human's hand. The meeting of two species, one ancient and fading, the other young and ascendant. Outside, the clouds parted, and for the first time in ages, sunlight touched the palace's black stone. The light reflected off the golden armor of the last emperor and the white suits of the humans. Two civilizations, old and new, standing beneath the same star. And in that light, something began, not the rebirth of an empire, but the awakening of legacy. The next sunrise over Aurelia was unlike any in its recorded history, not just because the light touched the obsidian palace for the first time in 60 millennia, but because it fell upon two civilizations standing side by side. The Terran exploratory team had begun setting up operations around the palace's perimeter. Drones scanned ruins, atmospheric stabilizers hummed softly, and holographic maps projected an outline of what the Aurelian capital once was. The once silent city now buzzed again, not with arrogance, but with curiosity. At the center of it all, Emperor Veldar IX stood among the humans, silent and observant. He watched them work. These small, short-lived beings whose eyes gleamed with the same fire as people once had. But where the Aurelians' fire had burned to dominate, humanity's burned to understand. The halls of memory. Deep beneath the palace, the humans uncovered something extraordinary. A sealed chamber connected to the Hall of Records, the central archive of the Aurelian Dominion. With the Emperor's guidance, they bypassed the ancient encryption locks. The walls came alive with flowing gold light, and countless holographic orbs floated into the air, each one holding centuries of memory. Scenes unfolded around them like living history. Aurelian fleets rising over nebulae, their hulls shimmering like suns. World ships carrying billions across galactic arms. Vast temples of crystal, where the laws of physics were bent into art. Human scientists stood in awe, but the beauty quickly darkened. The next vision showed the collapse. Endless wars between noble houses, suns extinguished to deny resources to rival factions, and the rise of the machine choir, AIs that turned on their creators. Entire systems blinked out of existence. At the heart of it all stood Veldar himself, crowned and burdened, shouting across council chambers, trying to unite a dying empire that refused to listen. The holographic version of him, proud, wrathful, seemed a stranger compared to the quiet figure now standing among the humans. When the visions faded, silence filled the chamber. You ruled 1,000 worlds, Elias said softly, and yet even you couldn't save them. Veildar's gaze was distant. No ruler truly saved their empire. Commander, we only delay its death. The Aurelians forgot that all things end, and that endings can be beautiful if accepted with grace. He walked toward the archive's core, touching a pillar that glowed at his presence. We believed we were gods because we could reshape stars. But we never asked if we should. We confused control with purpose. Elias folded his arms. That's what ended us too. Almost. Back on Earth, we built AI to manage our planet, our wars, our lives. When it all collapsed, we called it the Silent Century. We rebuilt from the ruins. Humbler, wiser. The Emperor studied him, intrigued. You learned humility through failure, the same lesson that destroyed us. He gave a low, resonant chuckle. Perhaps your kind truly are our heirs. The Starforge. Later that day, while scanning for deeper energy readings, Lieutenant Solari detected something massive beneath the planet's crust. The readings were faint but unmistakable, a fusion of stellar and quantum energy, far beyond human comprehension. Veildar's expression hardened when he saw the data. You found it, the Starforge. He led them to a hidden chamber beneath the archives, a colossal structure spanning kilometers underground, a radiant sphere suspended in magnetic fields, its surface alive with shifting constellations. The Aurelians built it in our final age, the Emperor explained, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. It was meant to rekindle dying suns, a gift to the galaxy and our redemption. Elias stared at the glowing machinery. You tried to save the stars themselves? Yes, Veildar said, but we failed. The forge was never completed. Our wars consumed its builders, and the Watchers, beings of pure energy, warned us that tampering with the stellar balance would bring ruin. He turned to Elias, eyes narrowing. If we awaken it now, they may return. Elias stepped closer to the forge's control core, running his fingers across the surface. And if we don't, this world, maybe entire sectors, will stay dark forever. Veildar considered that. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across his ancient face. You would risk awakening the cosmic judges for a chance to bring light? Elias nodded. It's what we do. We light fires in the dark. That's humanity's curse and its gift. A faint smile touched the Emperor's lips, spoken like one who has never known the weight of eternity. Still, he said no more. The forge pulsed once, as if it had heard them. The philosophy of the fallen. That evening, under the fractured sky, Elias and Veildar sat among the ruins. The other crew members had retired to the ship, leaving the two leaders alone amid the whispers of wind and ancient stone. Elias asked quietly, "When your empire fell, what did your people believe in?" Veildar's eyes dimmed. Nothing. We had long since replaced faith with certainty. We thought understanding the universe meant mastering it. We forgot that mastery without meaning is emptiness. He looked to the stars, faint, distant, but still burning. We built monuments, not legacies. But you humans, you build stories. You remind the cosmos that every spark matters, even if it fades. Elias smiled faintly. We're good at starting over. It's what we do best. Veildar studied him for a long moment. Then perhaps it is time for a new beginning. I am not a ruler anymore, but I can be a guide. Elias raised an eyebrow. You'd work with us? After all that's happened? The Emperor's voice softened. You woke me from my tomb. Commander, you gave me truth, not reverence. That is more than my own kind ever did. He extended his hand, the gesture ancient and regal. Then let the last Emperor of Aurelia stand beside the first explorers of Terra. Elias clasped it. Welcome to the team. The handshake sealed more than an alliance. It bound two eras of existence together, the old empire and the new frontier, awakening the past. Over the following weeks, humans and Aurelian machines worked in tandem. Old technologies reactivated, drones rebuilt lost networks, and archives began translating entire volumes of knowledge. But the more data they uncovered, the darker the warnings became. The The Watchers had left encrypted messages in the Aurelian code. Do not forge suns. Do not disturb the balance. The last attempt nearly ended the cycle. And yet, the humans persisted. Rana, studying the Forge's schematics, whispered, "Commander, this thing could reignite hundreds of systems. Whole galaxies could be reborn." Elias nodded. "Then we finish it." From the balcony above, Veldar watched them work, pride and fear warring within him. These humans, so fragile, so brief, dare to accomplish what his empire could not. He whispered to himself, "We ruled the stars and forgot their warmth, but they seek the warmth before the rule." As he turned back to the glowing forge, a faint tremor rippled through the palace. Not from the humans' work, but from something stirring beyond the horizon. Space itself seemed to whisper again. The cosmos, it seemed, was listening. And in that whisper, the Emperor felt it, a familiar dread. "They have noticed," he murmured. "The Watchers have awakened." The shadows of the ancient war were stirring once more. The storms came first, not of wind or rain, but of light, violent auroras that stretched across the heavens, twisting and shattering into spirals that tore the sky open. The sensors aboard the TSV Odyssey screamed with warnings. Space itself trembled as gravitational tides rippled through the orbit of Aurelia. "They're here," whispered Veldar 9, his voice heavy with the weight of eternity. The Watchers. For millennia, the Aurelians had feared them, entities not born of matter, but of energy and law, self-appointed custodians of balance. When the Aurelians had tried to bend the fabric of the cosmos to their will, the Watchers had come, extinguishing their fleets like sparks. Now they returned, drawn by the reawakening of the Starforge. The first strike. From orbit, the humans watched the void tear itself apart. Gigantic geometric forms of light began to emerge, lattice-like shapes spinning slowly through the darkness. They weren't ships, not in any conventional sense. They were manifestations, energy given intention, consciousness given form. "Mass signatures indeterminate," reported Lieutenant Solari, her voice trembling. "They're not physical. They're projections across every known spectrum." Before Elias could respond, the atmosphere shuddered. A beam of radiant energy pierced through the sky, striking the surface near the obsidian palace. The ground erupted into molten light. The message was clear: cease your interference or be erased. Elias gritted his teeth. All stations, combat readiness. On the surface, Veldar's ancient armor reconfigured, glowing lines tracing across its plates. "Your weapons will not stop them," he warned. "Even our God-forged armadas could not." Elias turned to him. "Then how did you survive?" The Emperor's eyes glowed faintly. "We didn't. The alliance of desperation. But humanity had something the Aurelians lacked: adaptability. Within hours, Elias and his crew began integrating Aurelian defense systems into Terran technology. Their engineers merged ancient golden circuits with human modular reactors, creating a hybrid planetary shield. Veldar stood within the control chamber, interfacing with the ancient network. His consciousness spread across the planetary grid, awakening towers and sentinels that hadn't stirred in 60,000 years. Massive crystal pylons emerged from the deserts, glowing with ancient power. Orbital debris realigned itself into defensive formations. For the first time in ages, Aurelia began to live again. But the Watchers were relentless. Each attack was not an assault, but a test, probing, analyzing, adapting. Their beams struck with surgical precision, unraveling matter into raw energy. "They're learning," Elias muttered. "They're evolving mid-battle." Veldar's voice came through the comms, echoing like thunder through the command deck. "Then we must do the same. Commander, route your ship's neural core through the planetary network." Elias hesitated. That could fry every circuit on board. "So be it. Better to burn with purpose than fade without meaning." Elias gave the order. The human vessel's AI linked with Aurelia's core, fusing human ingenuity with alien divinity. The entire planet's defense system pulsed with new light, golden and blue intertwining. The siege of Aurelia. The Watchers struck again, this time in numbers. Dozens of their radiant forms descended through the atmosphere, each one carrying the energy of a dying star. They spoke not in words, but in pulses of light, transmitted across all frequencies. Cease your creation. The balance must remain. Veildar responded, his voice amplified through the planetary grid. You once told us the same, and because of you, the galaxy drowned in darkness. We will not obey. The air cracked. The Watchers attacked. Human fighters darted through the burning skies, launching plasma bursts that disintegrated against shimmering shields. On the ground, defense turrets of golden alloy unleashed storms of radiant fire. In the command center, Elias stood beside Veildar, surrounded by holographic projections of the battlefield. The Emperor's neural patterns flickered through the data streams, his consciousness merging deeper into the network. Your mind's overloading. Elias shouted. It must. Veildar growled. Only an Aurelian can control the lattice. You, focus on the Star Forge. Elias turned toward the Forge's interface. The massive sphere beneath the planet roared with unstable energy. The humans had finished the final calibration. It could ignite within minutes. Once I activate it, Elias said, the Forge's pulse might drive him away or it'll tear the planet apart. Veildar's gaze softened. Then, Commander, may history remember you as a human who chose light, the human who would not yield. The Watchers' forms pressed closer, converging on the palace. Every strike sent shockwaves through the city, fracturing the obsidian spires. Elias's team worked frantically, rerouting power conduits. The Forge's energy reading spiked into the red. Solari's voice crackled through comms. Commander, they're targeting the Forge's core. If it destabilizes. I know, Elias interrupted, grimly. We're out of time. He placed his hand on the activation console. The interface flared to life, surrounding him with burning glyphs of Aurelian code. Elias, Veildar warned, you won't survive this. Neither did you, Elias said, and you still made the choice. Then he activated the Starforge. The world screamed. Energy surged through the crust of Aurelia, turning the sky into a sea of gold. The Watchers faltered, their forms flickering as a resonance pulse spread outward, a wave of harmony that disrupted their existence. But the overload began consuming the planetary core. Systems shorted out, circuits melted, and the control lattice collapsed. Elias's body convulsed as the feedback ripped through his neural link. Veildar reacted instantly, with a roar that shook the palace. He severed the human's link and took the connection into himself. His ancient armor flared with pure energy as his body began to disintegrate. Yet he smiled, truly smiled, for the first time since his empire's fall. You have given me a chance to finish what we began. He poured his consciousness into the forge, stabilizing its reaction at the cost of his own existence. The light spread, pure and infinite, above Aurelia. The Watchers screamed, their luminous forms unraveling, dissolving back into the cosmic fabric. The skies cleared, and the planet's broken sun flared back to life. And when the light faded, the Emperor was gone, the dawn after the war. Elias awoke hours later amid the ruins of the control chamber. The air smelled of ozone and ash. The Star Forge still hummed deep below, steady and alive. Status report, he croaked. Solari's voice answered through static. The Watchers are gone, sir. Radiation levels dropping. The sun's at stable. Elias struggled to his feet. The armor of Veildar lay beside him, empty, only a faint violet glow lingering in the cracks. On the console before him flickered a single message, a holographic echo encoded in Aurelian glyphs. Human, the stars are yours now. Rule them not as we did, but as you are. Elias bowed his head, silent. Around him, the first dawn in 60 millennia illuminated the palace ruins. The Emperor's war was over, but humanity's legacy had just begun. The war had ended, but the silence that followed was heavier than the screams that once filled the void between the stars. Humanity stood among ruins of glory, the remnants of an empire that had stretched across thousands of worlds, now nothing more than dust and drifting monuments. Yet, amid that desolation, a single truth remained. The last alien emperor had bowed before a human. The gesture had changed everything. It wasn't surrender. It was an acknowledgement that the torch of the galaxy's destiny had passed. The old empires, bound by bloodlines and divine right, had collapsed under their own pride. And now, as the cosmic dust settled, it was humanity's time to inherit what the ancients had left behind. Captain Elias Caron stood on the bridge of the Erebus, staring at the shattered ring of what was once the celestial throne, a structure so vast it circled an entire star. Every race that survived the War of Renewal watched in stunned silence as the Emperor Vera, the last ruler of the old order, knelt before him and spoke the words that would echo for millennia. The stars once guided us. Now they follow you. Elias had never sought power. He was an explorer, a historian, a man who had only wanted to understand the civilizations humanity had discovered among the stars. But fate had made him something else, the symbol of a new age, a galaxy without masters. In the aftermath of the war, chaos reigned. Dozens of alien worlds, once bound under the rule of the Veran Imperium, found themselves leaderless and afraid. They looked to the humans, the strange, reckless newcomers, for guidance. Humanity, once seen as primitive and short-lived, was now regarded as a species that had brought balance to a galaxy drowning in its own arrogance. But Elias understood the weight of what had been placed upon them. "We cannot rule them," he told his council aboard the Erebus. "We must guide them until they can stand again." Thus began the Council of Renewal, formed not as an empire but as a covenant. Humans and aliens alike gathered beneath one banner, not a conquest but a coexistence. The Council sought to restore lost worlds, heal the scarred heavens, and ensure that no race would ever again kneel before another. Still, not everyone welcomed this new order. Among the shadows of the collapsed empire, ancient war machines stirred, programmed with loyalty to the fallen emperor. Some believed the bowing was a deception, that humanity had merely been manipulated into becoming the next puppet master. Rebellions flickered across the stars, whispering of vengeance and purity. The emperor's gift. Before his death, Emperor Kael'rith left Elias something extraordinary, a memory crystal, encoded with the history and consciousness of his species. Within it lay not only knowledge of the Veran Empire's rise and fall, but also their technology, living machines, planetary forges, and the secrets of stellar architecture. When Elias touched the crystal, he saw visions of their ancient glory. Cities that floated on the corona of suns, temples built upon the backs of sleeping gods, and the first contact between the Verans and the galactic core intelligences. But he also saw their downfall, the arrogance, the wars of succession, and the moment they began to believe they were eternal. Kael'rith's final message was simple. Do not become us. You will inherit the stars, only if you remember what it means to be small among them. Elias carried that warning deep within him. The humans had won the war, but he feared they would soon lose their soul. The temptation of empire was a siren song, and already whispers within the council spoke of establishing a human dominion to bring order through control, the choice of humanity. The true test came when the council discovered the Vault of Eternity, an ancient construct orbiting a dying neutron star. Inside, they found something the Verans had hidden, a machine capable of reshaping entire star systems. It could breathe life into dead worlds or destroy entire civilizations with a whisper of energy. Some saw it as the ultimate tool of restoration. Others saw it as a final weapon. Elias knew the truth. It was both. In a fateful meeting aboard the Council Citadel, he addressed the gathered leaders, humans, aliens, synthetics alike. His voice echoed across the chamber. We were given the power of gods, not because we earned it, but because those before us fell. If we use this to rule, we'll only repeat their mistakes. But if we use it to rebuild, maybe we'll prove we were worthy of their trust. After hours of debate, the council voted to use the vault not as a weapon, but as a forge to restore dying stars, rebuild destroyed worlds, and reignite the fading heart of the galaxy. The legacy of the bow. Years passed. Humanity became not rulers, but stewards of the stars. Under the council's guidance, the galaxy entered an age of renewal unlike any before. Ruined worlds bloomed again, ancient species returned from extinction, and the scars of the old wars healed under the light of reborn suns. Elias lived long enough to see the first of these reborn worlds, Vera Prime, return to life. There, on the steps of the restored celestial throne, a monument was built. Two figures locked in a moment of respect, the alien emperor kneeling before the human explorer. Inscribed beneath it were the emperor's final words. Power is not given to those who seek it, but to those who refuse it. Elias stood before that monument in his final years, watching his children 100 worlds play together beneath alien skies. Humanity had not conquered the stars. They had healed them. As he looked to the heavens, he felt the presence of Kael'rith, not as an enemy, but as a friend. The galaxy no longer needed emperors or thrones. It needed dreamers. And for the first time in countless millennia, the stars themselves seemed to breathe again. The last alien emperor had bowed before human, and in doing so, ensured that the stars would never bow to anyone again.